Ladies and gentlemen, and Autobase Australia, this is Internet Personality Vangelus here with an Autobase Australia sponsored review of the Transformers Botcon 2009 set, Wings of Honor, and its related exclusives. I wanted to start off with a quick shot of the box because this is a new thing for Botcon boxes. This one has some elements to it. Although I have one knock against it immediately. I do love the black with the simple Elite Guard symbol on the front, and it does a very cool gatefold deal. Sadly, it doesn't actually close itself solidly in any way. I have a e-cig case here holding it closed, because if I take that away, it'll just start to fall open. I kind of wish there was a Velcro or a magnet clasp or something in there, but it's really a minor quibble. I'll quickly show you what the inside looks like. You get some really cool artwork, some Alex Milne original. It's very, very pretty. And then when you pop this open, one of my favorite parts of Botcon, you get to see your pre-reg set, all set in foam, all ready to go, ready for action. And then, since gravity is a cruel, cruel mistress, you have to put the pin back in place, because it's not really in there very solidly. A lot of their accessories and their instructions and tech specs are behind the foam, but I always did love this presentation. This is one of my favorite things about the Fun Pub takeover, was that we got these G.I. Joe convention-style boxes. Really nice display pieces, and I'm way into them. But let's move on to the figures themselves. To start the review off, let's take a look at one of the smallest things in the set, the pin! How incredibly exciting. It's a pin that proves that you went to Botcon 2009 in Pasadena, California, or that you at least bought the box set. As this is terribly exciting, let's move on. I wasn't exactly sure how to pace this video, so I've decided to do these guys in sections based on how they appear in the convention fiction. The main part of the box set that you got by pre-registering was these four guys. The Autobot Classic Elite Guard, from a flashback that Cup has while the shuttle they're in is being attacked by Scourge and The Sweeps. Since this is the bulk of the pre-reg set, I decided this would be the most important thing to cover first, since the box set is the biggest thing to look for from Botcon 09. I'm also not going to be focusing very much on the transformations, as these are all redecos and slight remolds. I'm more so going to be focusing on the color schemes and new parts and whatnot, and how the engineering fits these repainted characters. So, after this quick glamour shot, let's move on to the first one. Cup is the main character, quote-unquote, from the set, so I figure I'll cover him first. He's a repaint of Cybertron Red Alert, which is in and of itself a somewhat questionable choice. His vehicle mode is kind of clunky, and I suppose that since Cup is basically a pickup truck, something similarly boxy kind of works. What doesn't help, though, is that, try as one might to ignore it, his head is really sticking out of the roof. And unfortunately, that just doesn't work quite as well as the original mold's head, because this head was at least designed to kind of look like a piece of siren equipment. There were even a couple little red lights on the inside there. So I don't think this vehicle mode choice was all that awesome. And really, both of these pale in comparison to the superior reuse of the mold, which was Cannonball. But Cannonball is a phenomena in and of itself. Let's just say that this is the guy you go for if you're going to get this mold. That said, Cup isn't all that bad, and in his robot mode, though, a lot of things kind of start either coming together or crumbling. But let's take a look. Cup's robot mode has one major plus I want to point out right away, and that is this gorgeous, almost Krylon-esque silver paint. This silver is used throughout the set, and it really just is gorgeous and amazing. It feels like almost, as I said, Krylon car paint. It looks thick, it looks glittery, it's got a great amount of sparkle and oomph to it, and unfortunately it also completely does not work for his face, as far as my opinion goes. I think it makes his face, his already kind of weak-looking face, look even more undefined. It prevents a lot of the lines from coming out, and given that, I mean, this is supposed to be a young Cup, but I just find that this face sculpt is a little too mushy looking to me. So overall, the exclusive part of Cup, that being his head, just doesn't really work for me. The rest of his body looks okay. He's painted the right colors, he's got an interesting kind of orange detailing, and he's still got the tools on the inside of his legs here, so you can give him like a, a claw, or if you want him to be apparently his medic role, you can give him a little hammer so he can bonk bad guys on the head in a wholly uncartoony way, of course. Overall, I've got to say this guy is a weak link for me. I know there are some people who really enjoy him. It's just that he doesn't really have any of the aspects of Cup that I enjoy. He does have aspects, just none that do it for me. And really, a definitive Autobot paint scheme for this mold is the original, that being Red Alert. Between these two, I still feel they both pale in comparison to the majesty of Cannonball. Because Cannonball really is an epitome to me of what a repaint can do to completely alter the aesthetic and character of a toy. So, sadly, our Interstellar Patrolman Cup is not going to be a piece of this set that I highly recommend. Moving along! In perfect punctuation to just how uninspiring I find the Cup from this Botcon set, I entirely forgot to show you his Cyberkey redeco. Basically, it's the Cybertron one done up with a black border and some wings added on to the Autobot symbol to make it an elite guard symbol. I do like the addition of the wings, I feel it's very effective, so the Cyberkey's quite cool. And his gimmick still works, the mighty gimmick of pop-out shoulder cannons. Again, I gotta say, I'm sorry, Cup, but I can't give you very much love. Flak. Where to begin with Flak? I have a very strange love-hate relationship with this part of the Botcon 2009 set. It's an incredibly good toy. It's been repainted twice in Universe 2. Yet this deco is actually the best deco I've ever seen this mold receive. I love the Arctic camo, I love the white and gray, I love the brass and red used to pop bits and pieces of the robot detailing. Really, I cannot fault this toy in any way on its own. I really like it. As you can see, compared to his original predecessor from Cybertron, he's a little bit blander. Although, I dare say I find this guy a bit blander, just because the blue is kind of just a large kind of block of blue with the details around it, whereas this winter camo just does it for me so much. The robot mode also has its own unique features. Most importantly, Flak has, just like Cup, an entirely new head sculpt. It's a really nice one. It looks just like a generic, classic, kind of 80s, 90s style Autobot. Big, googly green eyes, a nice helmet, decent mouth. Although, this guy's mouth, I don't know if this will come out too clearly, due to the aforementioned Krylon silver paint used for his face, it has an excellent sheen, but the details are really mushed out, and I cannot really tell if his mouth is meant to be open, or if he just has really big lips. Outside of that, he's entirely the same as his predecessors. Really nicely proportioned robot mode, huge weapon packs on the sides, a nice handheld rifle. His predecessor from Cybertron, Scattershot, bearing the original head, has his own aesthetic to him. And the original head really, I always felt, was something that was a demerit against the repaints of him, because it has his goggles, and it has like the little T-shaped visor thing, which were very much some of his defining character points from his smaller form. So I'm really glad that Flak, being such a nice repaint, also has such a unique head sculpt. Now, there is a huge downside to Flak, which is that for all these niceties, and for all the good points I have to say about his entire deco, which I do enjoy and adore, I love this guy's paint job, I love everything about him, but he serves no purpose. He is a new character. He's maybe a throwback, I believe, to a Micromaster. His whole character on his bio card is that he's good at blowing things up and he has lots of guns. And honestly, he feels like an excellent mainline toy, an excellent piece of toy overall that I can't fault for any specific reason, but as a Botcon toy, he is massively underwhelming. It's hard to explain, really, why I feel that way. I know a lot of people don't like this guy at all, but I just love a lot of his qualities. But as a convention toy, he's a bit of a bust. He also has a unique cyber key, which I believe was done a lot better than Cups because of the white background added behind the Autobot symbol. And the transparent parts of his force chip, whatever, cyber planet gimmicks were done up in this really cool green, which I wish appeared more so on his body. I love this translucent green. And the gimmicks really do add to him even more, because for his limited character, he is a guy who apparently has tons of weapons. And I'm really behind the look of this dude. I almost wish this was the original rendition of the mold, because this is a toy I feel a lot of people should own and would enjoy, but being a Botcon toy, he'll probably be way outside of your price range. So it's a very hard judgment call to say. Flak is a highly, highly awesome figure, but I still can't really recommend him to many people because there is really no reason to own him outside of liking the way he looks. And given his huge price point, that reason just doesn't hold enough weight. So, Flak, the Shock Trooper, I like you, but I can't guarantee many other people will. Name, Landshark. Function, tough guy. Landshark is a redeco of one of my all-time favorite molds from Energon, and I was very excited to see this as part of the box set. This is a really, really cool toy, and if you've never owned one, this is definitely an upside to getting a hold of the box set. The deco on him is done in this really neat military green with a lot of bronze. The bronze is done in a similar metallic style to the Krylon silver, as you may be able to tell here. And it really lends an awesome quality to this redeco. It makes him look burly and tough. Now, the downside is that he doesn't photograph all that well. That bronze often turns orange, and orange was the main color of his predecessor. He is a very different deco, and in person I like him a lot more. I especially like the blue translucent used instead of the orange, but he has unfortunately lost all his electronics, and that is a shame, because Energon was the era that I felt really hit a good stride with electronics. They were unintrusive, they were often related to the transformation. This guy had some of the best ones. I wish I could demonstrate them, but his batteries have died a long time ago. The robot mode, however, has a few little problems, and there's a much grander problem that I'm going to explain later. Let's get to those robot modes. Landshark is a very striking robot mode. Much like his predecessor, it's imposing, and it's just loaded with character. And he still has, outside of the electronics, the gimmick of the little action base. His head is still the same as his predecessor, and in a bit of a downside, while it has the awesome Krylon silver added to it, the translucent blue that I did enjoy in the vehicle mode means you cannot see his eyes at all. If you look really closely, they're in there, but they don't shine through the translucent blue plastic at all. I think it's because it's too dark. The brass, though, and the green with the brown, it's an excellent color combo. And when put next to his predecessor, you can see that it's quite a difference. They certainly do look like two different guys, but we hit the same problem as Flak, really, in that while this looks awesome, I don't really care about him that much. He's Landshark. Don't ever call him Landmine, according to his bio. He's a large, tough guy. That's it. He does, however, bear the blessing of one of the coolest gimmicks ever, which is that this can turn into a Brute Pack. And I love the Brute Pack. So let's take a quick look at the Brute Pack. In this formation, Landshark can pull suckers towards his face and claw chums into oblivion. I love the Brute Pack. This thing is really, really cool. I know there are some people who take issue with just how monstrous it looks, but I feel that it's only to its credit. It takes a fairly buff-looking but normal robot and makes him into a monster machine of battle destruction. Sadly, though, there is a big problem with Landshark's configuration. There's also a minor paint problem that I have. It's actually a bit of a fun publication trademark at this point. As you can see on his predecessor, there's some pretty clear, neat paint apps on the fingers with the scraped paint and whatnot. You can see everything starkly against the orange. On Landshark, there are paint apps here. There really are. And you can kind of see them. They're more of that Krylon silver. sadly, they're so muted that they can get lost against the green quite easily, especially in certain lighting conditions. Something that FunPub is incredibly good at is doing some really cool paint apps, but choosing colors that mush together on the palette, and unfortunately that is kind of the case here. Also, while this guy's brute mode is super tough, it's awesome, this guy's isn't. I think it might have just been a case of mold degradation or something like that, but these parts, they seem to click in place rather than peg in place, and then when they are there, a little tap and they come off. So, yeah, Landshark, I want to recommend him, I really do. I think he's an excellent recolor despite his obvious physical deformation there, and maybe it's just the case with mine, I'm not sure. But, the problem is he's just not epic enough as a convention exclusive. He's mundane. He's a really cool toy in a fairly cool paint app scheme, but there's nothing very memorable about him. And what really kills me is that the leader of this group, you'd think would be the biggest guy, the guy with the upgrade kit, the guy with the little gun turret thing, the big, awesome truck toy. The leader of this group is not Landshark. And the leader's color scheme would have fit Landshark perfectly, because the leader is none other than the European powerhouse himself, Mr. Germany, Mr. UK, Mr. Italy, Thunderclash. And look at this paint scheme. This is a cult, awesome Euro paint scheme, which would have looked perfect on Landshark! That Landshark mold should have been Thunderclash. I'm going to just say it right now. I've seen digibashes of it, it looked perfect. I think this was easily the biggest blunder of the entire convention set, especially because this color scheme, while it works on this mold is Energon Rodimus Prime, a toy that I've always begrudged for doing so many things right, yet too many things wrong. I really like this toy visually and conceptually, but practically, I always end up getting annoyed with it. So, seeing Thunderclash not only get used on this toy, but get used on this toy when a much better one was in this very set, was a big blow. That said, the deco is great. It's very Thunderclash. The blue hubcaps are a really nice touch. Everything is there, the turquoise. This isn't actually white. This is a really cool off-white kind of bone color. I love it. And his eagle logo is up here, which is a great nod to the original. And just for reference, this is Rodimus Prime himself, who has a really cool deco. And I mean, like, I love this vehicle mode as the demented tractor-trailer pulling spoiler racing speed truck. But the robot mode is where things kind of crumble. And I'll show you that right now. Now, once again, on paper, this more or less makes sense. He's got the right colors, it's very bold, especially his legs, which are just covered in pop and awesome, especially the turquoise heel spurs. But there's a huge problem, which is his chest. Now, you see how the trademark awesome Thunderclash logo is this winged thing across here, and you see how there's this Autobot Elite Guard symbol up there with wings in it? You notice how it feels like one of these should be inside the other one? Yeah, that's basically my problem. I think that those logos could have been fused in a really cool, characterful way, especially given the sculpted wing-like stuff here, yet it didn't happen, and I feel that was an enormous blunder. I really wish I didn't have to use the word blunder so much, but it comes up a lot when it comes to this toy, I find, and I don't hate the toy. As I said, there's lots that I like about this mold, it's just that there's more that I dislike about it, which kind of just burns because of the things I do like about it. He does have this cool kind of Krylon-y brass face, and I think it does work in this case because there's not as many details to get muddled up in there, and the blue helmet really helps accentuate over top of it. But overall, just this guy, as a toy, in case you've never messed with one, he's very basic, very basic. He's got decent posability, but tends to look like he's squatting no matter what you do with him. And could have used a thigh swivel, really could have used a thigh swivel. To show you what he looks like with his predecessor, this is Energon Rodimus Prime, who I feel just suits the mold better. Even though I don't like a lot of the physical aspects of this mold, I think this whole color scheme, and the flames especially, really bring it together nicely. And with Thunderclash, that stuff is sadly a little bit lost, especially when, as I'm going to keep harping on, they had a perfect mold to put it on, and instead they made Landshark out of it. By the way, if you want, you can do some neat kind of inverse convention leader plus Energon-y combination stuff. Super Link Thunder Rod! Thunder Rod here is the Teutonic Master of Libido, and I am very happy to see him get some representation in toy form, because I'm a big fan of the various fanfictions he's appeared in, namely Thunder Rod's Big Night and Payin' for the Pizza. So I gotta give him props there, but overall, yeah, poor Thunderclash. He could have been so much more, and it's really just such a massive, massive waste of potential. So this Autobot Elite Guard squad, on the whole, are 4 toys loaded with potential that sadly did not deliver. Be it Cup or Thunderclash, who were excellent, excellent concepts, or Flak or Landshark, who are excellent toys. Nothing matches up. The excellent concepts got fairly weak toys, and the 2 really, really cool toys sadly have no concept. Flak, especially, even has a remolded head, which is really nice, but there's nothing behind it. Landshark is an excellent toy with a really nice, if moderately cool, redeco, but he should have been Thunderclash. Overall, this is just a large amount of missed potential and adequacy. There's nothing in here that I outright despise. It's just that the conglomeration of it all makes these guys a neat, cohesive unit, but I could never really recommend a single one on its own. Flak or Landshark, I would say you should try to seek out for a really reasonable price. If you can find them for 30 to 60 bucks a piece, that's excellent, and I would say I recommend them, because they are very limited, and they look great, and they're great toys. Thunderclash and Cup, though, I just cannot recommend unless you adore Thunderclash or are a huge Cup fanatic. Thunderclash I wish I could have recommended, but he should have been on this guy. I'm going to keep saying it. So, the bulk of the box set, sadly, was a bit of a disappointment. They're cool as a unit, and that's what they're like in the story, but unlike Shattered Glass, there's no one member that I feel stands alone excelling in both the physical form and the storyline and conceptual form. That stuff out of the way, let's move on to some of the cooler parts of the exclusives. The box's final member and only Decepticon is also its winner. This is Scourge, and he has been just that to many people's wallets on the aftermarket. Scourge is a repaint of Cybertron's Sideways, or Galaxy Force's Noise Maze, and it really does work, I think, as an alternate version to his usual flying shoeboat vehicle mode. The colors are quite excellent. They're a little bit more on the purple side of blue than the more turquoise and sky blue that one is used to with Scourge, but I think they work. To show you him next to his Japanese predecessor, Noise Maze, you can see there's quite a stark difference in color aesthetic. Noise Maze also has the advantage of all this chrome and whatnot, and basically being a Death Halloween thing. But Scourge, I actually dare say, pulls off a bit of a better and more durable look in that he is covered in a lot of good spots with, yes, once again, the Super Krylon Silver paint. And it's used copiously on him and in great places. So, to show you his robot mode and his very unique head sculpt, Scourge is definitely a toy that is not highly photogenic, I have found, but in a good way. He doesn't look all that great in photos, and his new head definitely looks very odd, but up close, I think it actually pulls off the look quite well. It's got everything you need for Scourge. It's got the evil robo-goatee, and it even has his forehead thing. It's just recessed down, so it's no longer sticking off the top of his head. I actually think that kind of works. The only downside of the head is it's extremely thin to fit into this cockpit area, but I think it is a lot better than I expected, and it's also blessed with a lot of that nice Krylon silver, but to prevent losing details, the mustache and beard are done up in white, which looks really, really striking. To compare him to his predecessor, Noise Maze, you'll definitely see, again, a stark difference in color schemes, but the aesthetic, I think, in the ways it works for Noise Maze, it works differently for Scourge. Scourge's cape, another trademark aspect of him, is actually carried over in the form of the stuff here in the back. I'm just really surprised with how well this turned out. It fits in incredibly well with the Universe Classics Heralds of Unicron, and I think that's the really important thing this guy needed to do, is we needed an updated Scourge in some fashion, and I think this guy actually works pretty well. His Force Chip Cyber Planet Key thingy is done up in the same blue as the rest of his body, and sadly there was a missed opportunity here. Unlike Noise Maze, there's no symbol in here, and then when you put this in, there is still no symbol. This could have been used for some really cool stuff. A Unicron symbol or something like that. It could have been done, I think, way cooler, and I think that's the biggest missed potential on this guy. But overall, he looks pretty cool, and especially if you put the knives in his hands and stuff, he looks like a very decent Nouveau-style Unicron Herald. And when, placed with his soul buddies, he's definitely got a cool look going on that fits in quite well with the others. Now, I admit, one thing that helps this look be more convincing is that only one of these three is a really ball-bustingly excellent toy, namely Cyclonus. Galvatron, personally, actually, I don't mind the toy much, but he is a very weak toy, and he's short. And Scourge is the right size to go with him, and that really helps. It just means Cyclonus is a tall guy. However, Scourge isn't alone. Thanks to the power of @Convention Souvinirs, this motley trio can also be flanked by another trio of sweeps. And the sweeps, as you can see, are identical to Scourge, but done up in more of a turquoise, with less red and more of a golden orange. And I really like the way the sweeps were done, especially since this vehicle mode is a very neat kind of drone-style vehicle. So imagining just a swarm of these things flying in, and then just a whole bunch of those guys, I actually find a really cool visual. I think it works out really well. And then when you assemble everyone all together, you've got your sweep, you've got Scourge, you've got Galvatron, you've got Cyclonus, and you've even got and his armada. Things get pretty epic. Not to mention that thanks to Kal-El Prime, I discovered that and his armada's target master can fit into Scourge's hand like a glove. So now Scourge and Cyclonus have their own personal target master sidearms, and their background buddies are just armed for bear. And then amidst all this chaos, you've got one more hovering around over here, you got one more hovering around back here, and you've got just a whole little clan of Unicron minions. So the Scourge and the Sweeps, I think, are really worth it if you're a fan of Galvatron and Cyclonus and Scourge and the whole Unicron thing. These guys all go together really nicely. And there was one extra bonus with these guys, which not many people are into, but I thought was really genius. While Scourge got his own bio card, that's all well and good, they went really the extra mile on the sweeps. So Scourge is the sweep commander, but did you know that we didn't just get sweeps, we specifically got Sweep 2, the close combat specialist with his wide open mouth. We also got Sweep 6, the tactician, whose mouth is closed and pensive. And we got Sweep 7, the weapons officer, whose mouth is only slightly open as he chuckles, for you've underestimated the power of Sweep 7. This even extends to their instruction manuals, and this is where I really fell in love with the sweeps, who I quite honestly was expecting to see as forgettable background material. Even their instructions are for Sweep 7, Sweep 2, and Sweep 6. This is something that makes the sweeps really special, and I've got to say that if you're going to go after any exclusives for the sake of adding to your own classics display, make it Scourge and the Sweeps, because they don't just look the part, but they actually have character. And giving these three sweeps their own little quirks, it's not really expanded on in the comic book, but I am just really in love with the idea that every sweep is only named by number, yet still has his own individuality. So I'm really into how they did the sweeps, and they are really big winners out of the set for me. Scourge as well, but the sweeps were quite a surprise in how much I liked them. Moving along, this is the attendance freebie Leozack. An attendance freebie, by the way, is basically something given to you for free, provided that you pre-register for the convention and arrive in person. Leozack is based on the good old Energon Starscream mold, a mold that I still like to this day quite a bit. His colors are extremely close to the Japanese Leozack model. I actually can't recall if these are closer to the toy colors or the character model colors from the Victory TV show. But, as you can see, they are quite a far cry from the Energon Ghost Starscream's color scheme, which was very dark. The only downside is, there's a lot of this kind of leftover sculpted damage and scarring, and to my recollection, there's no real reason given to a lot of it, except that maybe this guy gets beaten up a lot, so I guess he comes pre-battle damaged, is the best way to put it. Now, his transformation is very reminiscent of a G2 Dreadwing component. However, it is not actually a remold of that toy, it's a completely new tooling that was more or less based entirely off of an existing toy, but to very good results in my opinion. His transformation is thus off-screen. But now that he's back on screen, you can see his very cool robot mode. Leozack is armed with a sword and gun, and honestly, thanks to these, I think this was the perfect choice for this repaint. His head even has enough resemblance to Leozack's for this to work, and I think this was definitely an excellent idea on the part of the club. He's got, as I said many times, that awesome Krylon silver on the face. Sadly, though, he does have an inexplicably translucent arm. His bio can explain some of this away, but it's a bit of a shame that they couldn't solid mold a lot of these parts, or perhaps fix up some of the battle damage. If you want to see him in comparison with his predecessor, here's the Energon Starscream. And as you can see, they have very little in common deco-wise. They did a really good job of making Leozack stand on his own, and it's only finished off nicely by Energon Starscream's gimmick of the combined Uber Sword, and how you can stick that into Leozack's hand and hopefully have him hold it up. It does go in rather loosely, and sadly the elbow is a little bit messed up. This elbow, by the way, pops out extremely easily, and several of us thinkin' Transformers fans have come to the conclusion that this mold probably has been suffering some major fatigue, even though it didn't get used very often. It did have at least 3 uses during Super Link and Energon, so it's a bit of a shame. But it looks really great, and I think that this guy is quite a success on the part of FunPub. And the final thing that really makes him cool is his bio. I wasn't sure how they were going to work Leozack, of all people, into this set, and having him basically as an experimental warrior who is demented and likes to scream his attack names is probably the best idea they could have had. I'm really surprised with how well that turned out, so many props to the club again for a really interesting exclusive idea, and I only wish that some of these exclusive ideas could have been ported over to Autobots. It seems the Decepticons really won out this year. Anyway, to continue on, Leozack is part of a trio of villains from the Wings of Honor comic book who face down the somewhat disappointing Autobot foursome. One of his buddies is Skyquake, who is a redeco based on another European toy much like Thunderclash. Skyquake does pull off the deco really well, and if you're a fan of Skyquake and his crazy colors, then you'll be right at home. I feel quite at home with this guy. Sadly, you may not. There's nothing wrong with disliking these colors, they are very weird, but they do match Skyquake to a T, so as far as that goes, this guy is a success. Transforming him is a flash. And when you're done, you've got a fairly imposing Euro-colored robot named Skyquake. Now, Skyquake has, again, a very strange color scheme, and if you're into it, it really works. I actually quite like how they even bronzed his face. However, he also suffers, like Leozack, from inexplicable transparent shoulder syndrome. There were 2 other recolors of this mold in the comic book, namely Hellbat and Hooligan, as well as Skyhawk, so that would actually be 3, wouldn't it? Counting is fun! But sadly, we only got Leozack and Skyquake. However, they are still pretty decent. They can still pull off a lot of the gimmicks their predecessor could, but as you can see, their durability is lessened, and this guy also has a bit of a gammy elbow, much like Leozack. I'm quite sure that this mold simply suffered from a lot of degradation. Landshark also had these kind of problems, and it's pretty unfortunate because these are good toys, and sadly, their durability level isn't up there with a mainline toy. But if you're collecting these mostly as display pieces, I think you'll still be set. So, Skyquake isn't bad. He's got, again, a very interesting bio, and some great bio artwork, I do want to point out. A lot of these guys ended up with some very decent artwork, which helps one take them a bit more seriously. But the real star of the 2-pack that Skyquake is in would be his buddy, Banzaitron. Banzaitron is my favorite part of this set. I will come right out and say it now. Banzaitron is based on a classic Action Master unique character who has an extremely descriptive name and is into all kinds of crazy things like crystallocution martial arts. This is a redeco of Energon Mirage, yet another underrated Energon mold that I really like, which is something that this set pulls off several times, and I have to give it credit for that. He's also got interesting Cybertronian writing, which some people have translated as meaning various different kinds of things. I can't actually remember because that would involve research! But he does look very striking, and these are the Banzaitron colors. In comparison with his predecessor, you can see they both have a very sleek, ninja-like, night vision-y kind of color scheme, to use several adjectives that have no place in this review. But the differences in paint apps are actually not all that noticeable. They generally use the same patterns outside of the stuff here, and maybe a little bit up here in the arms. So those of you hoping for something wildly different may be disappointed, but I can tell you that Banzaitron's own color scheme is characterful enough. Sadly, he did lose the electronics again, although I suppose that's only sadly for those of us who would say that sadly. I'm sure that's actually a draw for many other people. But I digress. Let's ninja this guy into robot mode. Now, we've got Banzaitron in his robot mode. And what a robot mode it is. Energon Mirage has a very, very ninja-esque robot mode, and I feel it was a great choice for Banzaitron. Right up to the head, having its very unique, detailed stylings really matches up with the craziness of Banzaitron's nature. As a character, as a toy, he's just really, really silly, but in awesome ways. And I really love this rendition. The colors are all there for sure, and he's, just as I said before, really accentuated by the Energon Mirage mold. It brings out a lot of sinister nature, it brings out a lot of sleek ninjutsu stylings. I am way into how this guy turned out. He's also got, of course, Hyper Mode giant arm fins, and his pop-up ninja missile backpack. So, I am really happy with this guy. There are a few weird things, though, mostly that these are nowhere near as durable as on his predecessor, because this slides out really easy. A couple of us at Botcon at first thought, wow, did they add, like, a gimmick so these turn into giant swords? Sadly, no. The best you can really do is you can fold them up against his backpack like this, and that does look pretty cool. It's kind of like a giant Ronin banner. Generally, that was a bit of a missed opportunity, I think. In comparison with his predecessor, I honestly can't pick a favorite. I like the way these guys both look. They look really eminently Decepticon, sleek, and, I'll say it for a 400th time, ninja-like. I think I'd have to give some points to Banzaitron, though, just for being wacky and Banzaitron and having that green on him. So, overall, I've got to say that Banzaitron is a big winner in this set. I've got to give him the gold medal. Now, I'm not done with this review yet, but that's because the final two toys available at Botcon don't really fit in with the rest. All these guys have been showing to you have a place in the comic book. These next two are tremendous afterthoughts. Let's take a look at them. Back in Botcon 2006, we got some fiction based on the Beast Wars characters before they became the Beast Wars characters. Their past on Cybertron, things like that, and something that was worked into it were these bestial Predacons, reimaginings of the G1 Predacons in more Beast Wars-y forms. These were actually made as custom toys back then, and a whole bunch of us thought, hey, why don't they make them into Botcon exclusives? Now, several years later, one of them has been made into a Botcon exclusive. This is Razorclaw, the Predacon Commander. The deco works. It is a good deco. The color scheme is great. It suits this toy. This toy definitely looks like Razorclaw as a lion. Sadly, I really don't like this toy. And it's majorly hampered by a couple things that, sadly, this Razorclaw version can't really even take part in. He has no electronics, for one thing. They've been removed, like on all the other Botcon toys. And his counterpart here, Leozack, had a main function in Cybertron, which was turning into a giant fist. So, overall, you know, I wish I could say that I was way into Razorclaw. I do appreciate that he's a bit of a catch-up toy, kind of like a missing toy from several years ago that has now been put back in. But to take up an exclusive slot, I don't know. Let's check out the robot mode. Once again, I've got to say, his colors are pretty spot on. He looks very much like Razorclaw. He even got a new head mold, which means that this guy not only took up a Botcon slot, he also took up a new head budget piece. It's a very nice new head. It looks very much like Razorclaw. It has the triangular sort of slit visor, which admittedly I think looks kind of neat with the ponytail added in the back. It makes him a lot more feral. That said, I don't think the Leo Prime face painted like this would have been a bad thing. I think that if they'd repainted the Leo Prime head like this, it would have worked still, and maybe saved some of the budget for the more deserving toys. Like his predecessor, as I've said, this guy does share the fist mode, and if you put them next to each other, you can see that Razorclaw really is a much more vibrant and intricate deco. All that said, though, he really serves no purpose in the Botcon 09 set as a whole, and, yeah, I'm sorry guys. I mean, I do like that his cyber key thing is done up like the rest of the 06 one, so it's like a golden disc, and with his claw out, you know, he can look pretty terrifying. With both of his claws out, he can look downright intimidating, but he's still a bit of a weak toy, and he's hampered for a gimmick that he can't even really use. Although, well, technically you can use it, but I can't really say I'm feeling all that inspired here, guys. I'm sure there is a certain level of comedy in this abomination that I've now constructed, but if the only real upside of this is that now Cybertron, Megatron, or Galvatron can have two giant lion arms that are also evil, that's not really much of a selling point. I'm gonna let this go, and we're gonna just see what happens when I do that. Are you ready, ladies and gentlemen? Let's count down together. 3, 2, 1... Oh, hey, that went better than I expected. But I need to see the bio card, so... Anyway, Razorclaw is an interesting redeco. He's unique. He most definitely is the right colors, and he's an interesting model to use, but he really does not fit in with this set whatsoever, and neither does his two-pack mate. Yes, from the 07 comic book, the missing exclusive from the highly sought-after 2007 exclusive sets, it's Elita 1, the extremely pink boat. A lot of us thought this would make for a really obvious club exclusive, and apparently we were only halfways right. She made for a really obvious club exclusive Botcon souvenir toy. She is a terrifyingly pink speedboat. This basically is how she was represented in the comic in 07, and even her little force chip is really, really pink. I actually got to see a little girl really want this toy at Botcon, and then her mother was told how much it cost, and instead they were told they should look at Revenge of the Fallen Chromia. So, to transform this speedboat, you have to do something pretty terrifying. But before I do that, here's her predecessor, Chromia McThunderblast, the Lollyboat. They are both boats, but, you know, Chromia is obviously done up to look a lot more evil with the orange and purple. So, one part of transforming this toy is opening the boat, and I do want to show you this because I know there's a lot of you out there who... Oh, by the way, this will also fall off constantly. I know there's a lot of you out there who probably have, you know, childhood memories of that episode where we met Elita 1 in Generation 1, and you probably thought of her as a bit of a mother figure, so to ruin those memories forever, here is Elita 1. Okay, I'll do the rest off screen. But to be absolutely fair, I will say that was a nice throwback and a nice action feature for all the pornfic writers out there. Elita 1 is still terrifyingly pink, only now slightly more blue. She also has the benefit, actually, of these added paint apps up here, which do help break up the monotony of the pink on pink on pink on pink on pink on turquoise and blue. But, I don't know, I mean, it was okay in the comic book, but this face sculpt still feels to me to be just a little bit too sinister to be something I could take as Elita 1. It sort of works, and as I said, she's extremely pink. So those of you who find Elita 1's key characteristics to be A, pink, and B, female, this toy will satisfy those needs quite well. If you want the toy to actually stand pretty well, or, you know, do much, you'll find yourself in a bit of a quandary, because she has these really demented high heels and diagonally cut thighs, so she can assume her porno position inside the boat. To show her with her predecessor, Chromia Thunderblast, here are the girls with their enormous coffin backpacks and general inability to stand. Yeah. I'm just gonna hold this one here. You can see that Elita 1 definitely has more detailed paint stuff on the inside of the boat shell, but her overall robot mode feels a bit more boring to me. Really, again, she's a toy who's taking up a slot in this Botcon set, and I don't really think she was necessary. It's almost compounded by the fact that the 2-pack of her and Razorclaw are being sold on the club site, and were being sold on the club site almost immediately after the convention was over. They were also the one you could buy the most multiples of, etc., etc. Really, I feel they were a waste. And I do like that I can finish up 2 different convention set displays now with more characters from their fiction, but honestly, I wish that these spots had been given to some other characters, and I wish that these had been saved as potential club exclusives, albeit perhaps unexciting club exclusives, but club exclusives nonetheless. As Botcon exclusives, I really am not behind them at all. They kind of just take up space in the luggage. And generally, I think I'm just going to be sticking them in a display case, and that's about that. So who in this titanic gauntlet of Botcon 2009 toys would I say reigns supreme? What are the toys I'd recommend the most to anybody? Who won in Pasadena, California? Well, if I were to give an honorable mention, it would definitely go to Scourge and The Sweeps. These guys are a formidable foursome. They really get across the look of a general and his army of drones, while still each being able to maintain their own character, be it visually, be it in their profiles, yet in vehicle form they all look like part of one massed squadron. I really love the way that you can make their robot modes have just minor differences to set each other apart. And when placed with the toys they are very, very much meant to be put next to in a main line, Scourge and The Sweeps really are a set that is meant to be had. Now, the thing is, they won't work for everybody. For some people, they may even be the first place out of all these toys, and for me, they're very, very close. I'm actually pretty sure I'm going to end up enjoying them more in the long run. But as far as a set of toys from this Botcon exclusive selection that really stand on their own in very unique ways, it would definitely have to be the Enemies of Honor, the Decepticon Trio. These 3 guys stand on their own very well. It would be very pricey to get all of them at once, but even if you can only get just 1 or 2, these guys are pieces that would stand out in your collection whether or not you have other toys to go with them. And they're each just so unique and so characterful and so well done that I've got to say these 3 guys are real prizes. And sadly, these 3 guys were also not in the pre-registration box, so I do have to say that it's a massive knock against the 2009 set that its main attraction, the 5-figure pre-registration box, was also the least effective component of the entire exclusive experience. So, if you had to make the choice, when it comes to Botcon 2009, no matter where your tastes lie, look Decepticon. Unless, of course, you've got a fetish for toy porn fiction, and you want to start making your own, then you should try to get Elita 1, because she's very pink and can split her hips open extremely widely. You can get Classics Prime in there, and it's all awesome, and, Anyway, this has been Internet Personality Vangelus. Thanks for trucking along with me through this enormous review video. Thanks again to Autobase Australia for sponsoring and suggesting this video. I hope that this has been useful to you guys. I hope the Smash is going well, or has gone well. And until next time, I'll see you guys in the next review. Alright, I know at least one of you out there's doubting me. Don't say I didn't warn you!